The red warning lights flashed across Galactic Medical Station Alpha 7, like angry lightning. Commander Thelax stared at his computer screen with all four of his alien eyes, his long tentacle arms shaking as he read the emergency message that had just arrived from a research ship called the Horizon's Edge. "We have a big problem," he said to his medical team, his voice tight with worry. "There's a Vorthok creature on that ship. It's hurt and trapped with the crew. They need help right away." Dr. Veltar, the head alien doctor at the station, quickly stepped back from the computer like it might bite him. His blue skin turned even paler. "That's impossible, Commander. Nobody can get close to a hurt Vorthok and live to tell about it. These things are killing machines. They've destroyed whole planets before." The other three alien doctors in the room looked at each other with pure terror in their eyes. Everyone in the galaxy knew the stories about Vortex, space stations ripped apart like paper, entire crews found dead, torn to pieces, ships found floating empty in space with only bloodstains left behind. "I can only think of one person who might try this," Commander Thalax said slowly, like he didn't really want to say the words. "The human-animal doctor in Sector 7, a human." Dr. Veltar's voice went up so high it almost squeaked. "Commander, you know the rules say humans can't work with Class X predators. It's against everything we've agreed on." "I know what the rules say," Thalax replied, his voice heavy with the weight of having no other choice. "But she's the only person in the galaxy crazy enough to even think about trying this." While this conversation was happening, Dr. Kate Miller was working in her small animal clinic on a frontier space station far away. She had just finished fixing up a merchant's cargo animal that had gotten hurt during transport. The creature looked like a cross between an earth cow and a lizard, and it had been pretty scared when it first arrived. But Kate had a way with frightened animals. Her communication device suddenly lit up with an urgent message. The holographic image of Commander Thelax appeared in front of her, flickering slightly from the long-distance transmission. The alien commander looked desperate, his tentacles moving nervously as he tried to find the right words. "Dr. Miller," he began, his alien voice translator working hard to keep up with how fast he was talking. "We have a situation that requires your special skills with dangerous animals." Kate washed her hands and looked at the medical readings that appeared on her screen. The data showed a creature in serious pain, with stress levels through the roof. Her heart went out to any animal that was suffering, no matter how dangerous it was supposed to be. "What kind of timeline are we working with?" she asked, already knowing she would say yes. "The crew has been trapped for almost a day now," Thalax explained. "The creature is getting more agitated by the hour. Our experts say it's preparing to break out of containment and kill everyone aboard." Kate studied the biological data more carefully. The readings showed a pattern she had seen many times before in her years of working with Earth's most dangerous animals. High stress hormones, elevated heart rate, repetitive movement patterns. This wasn't a predator preparing to hunt. This was a scared, hurt animal that didn't know what was happening to it. "I'll need my full medical kit and transport to your location," Kate said without hesitation. "Dr. Miller, I must warn you," Thelax said, his voice getting more serious. "If you take this job, you'll be the first human to ever attempt treatment on a Class X predator. Many of my colleagues think it's suicide." Kate looked at the pain readings on her screen again. Somewhere out there in space, a living creature was suffering, and everyone was too afraid to help it. That wasn't acceptable to her. "Commander," she said firmly, "I became a veterinarian to help animals that can't help themselves. Size and reputation don't change that mission." As she gathered her equipment, Kate thought about all the supposedly vicious animals she had treated over the years. Bears, wolves, big cats, even some alien creatures that other people were afraid of. In almost every case, the aggression came from fear, pain, or misunderstanding. She wondered if this Vorthok might be the same way. The emergency transport arrived. Within 30 minutes, ready to take her into what everyone else considered certain death. The research ship Horizon's Edge floated motionless in the darkness of space like a wounded animal. Its metal hull was covered with dents and scratches that looked like they came from something powerful hitting it from the inside. Dr. Kate Miller's small transport ship carefully connected to the airlock, while panicked voices in dozens of alien languages filled the communication channels. Captain Thompson, the only other human on the research vessel, was waiting for her when the airlock doors opened. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Dark circles hung under his eyes, and his uniform was wrinkled and stained with sweat. The moment he saw Kate, relief washed over his tired face. "Thank goodness you made it here," he said, grabbing her arm gently. "We've been stuck up here for almost 20 hours now. The whole crew is terrified to move around the ship." Kate shouldered her heavy medical bag and looked around at the dimly lit corridor. "Where exactly is this creature everyone's so worried about?" "Cargo Bay 7, 3 decks down from here," Thompson replied, leading her through the ship's narrow hallways. "The thing has been slamming itself against the walls since yesterday morning. Dr. Kethra thinks it's getting ready to break out and kill all of us." As they walked through the ship, Kate noticed alien crew members pressed against the walls, watching her with a strange mix of hope and fear in their various types of eyes. Some had the big round eyes of creatures that lived in dark places. Others had eyes that looked like jewels, and a few had compound eyes like insects from Earth. Many of them were making soft sounds that her translator couldn't understand, but they sounded like prayers. A tall blue alien with shaking hands pointed at Kate and whispered something to his friend, even though she couldn't understand the words. Kate could tell they thought she was walking to her death. When they reached the observation deck above Cargo Bay 7, Kate found the research team crowded around a bunch of computer screens and monitoring equipment. Dr. Kethra, who looked like a giant praying mantis with golden compound eyes, was waving his thin arms at the displays, showing different readings and numbers. "Look at all these warning signs," he said in a high, buzzing voice. "The creature's stress chemicals are off the charts. It's producing attack pheromones and marking its territory. Every single reading tells us this beast is preparing to go on a killing spree." Kate moved closer to the security monitor that showed the inside of the cargo bay. What she saw took her breath away. The Vorthok was massive, easily 12 feet tall when it stood up. Its body was covered in natural armor that looked like it could stop bullets, and its claws were long enough to cut through steel doors. But Kate had spent her whole career looking past the scary appearance of animals to understand what was really going on with them. "How long has it been moving in this exact pattern?" she asked, watching the creature pace back and forth across the cargo bay. "It hasn't stopped since we found it injured," Dr. Kethra replied. "The movement has been constant and getting more aggressive." Kate shook her head and pointed at the screen. "No, that's not right. Watch the timing. Look at how it turns at the same spot every time. Count the steps between each turn. This isn't aggression at all. This is pacing behavior. The creature is stressed and in pain, and it doesn't know how to handle those feelings." The alien scientists looked at each other with doubt written all over their faces. Dr. Kethra's antennae twitched in what Kate was learning meant disagreement or annoyance. "Human doctor," he said, in a tone that sounded like he was talking to a child. "Your species might understand the simple animals on your home planet, but a Vorthok is the most dangerous predator in our galaxy. They are killing machines that have destroyed entire civilizations." Kate had heard this kind of talk before. Every time she worked with a new species, someone would tell her that this animal was different, more dangerous, impossible to approach safely. She'd heard it about grizzly bears, about wounded lions, about territorial elephants, and about dozens of alien creatures she'd treated over the years. "Every single animal I've ever helped was supposedly impossible to approach safely," she replied, calmly checking the supplies in her medical kit. "But you know what I've learned? The most dangerous animals are usually just the most scared and hurt ones. Captain Thompson stepped closer to her, his voice full of concern. Kate, I've seen the reports about what these things can do. Entire space stations torn apart. Military teams with advanced weapons completely wiped out. I understand the risks, Kate said, closing her medical bag and heading toward the door that led down to the cargo bay. But I also understand that no creature attacks without reason. That Vorthok down there isn't preparing to hunt. It's trying to cope with pain in the only way it knows how. Dr. Kethra's compound eyes seemed to bulge out even more. You cannot be serious about going down there. That creature will tear you apart the moment you enter its space. Kate paused at the door and looked back at all the frightened faces watching her. Maybe it will finally get the help it's been trying to ask for this whole time. As she reached for the door handle, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. The Vorthok had just hit the cargo bay wall harder than ever before, and stress readings were climbing to dangerous levels. The containment field is at 60%, someone shouted. If it breaks through, we're all dead. Kate took a deep breath and opened the door. Then I better hurry. The heavy cargo bay doors slowly opened with a loud hissing sound, like air escaping from a giant tire. What Kate saw inside made her heart skip a beat, but not from fear. The metal walls were covered in deep scratch marks that looked like someone had dragged giant knives across them. The air was thick and heavy with a wild, musky smell that reminded her of the big cat enclosure at the zoo back on Earth. The Vorthok was absolutely massive, almost as big as an elephant she had once treated at a wildlife rescue center. It had worn a clear path in the metal floor from walking back and forth, over and over again, like a tiger in a too small cage. Kate could see right away that this was an animal in serious distress. She stepped into the cargo bay very slowly and carefully. Every movement was calm and deliberate, the way she had learned to move around frightened animals. Through the tiny communication device in her ear, she could hear the worried whispers of the alien crew members watching her through security cameras. Dr. Miller, Captain Thompson's voice came through the speaker, crackling with static and tension. The second that thing shows any sign of attacking, we're getting you out of there immediately. The moment Kate entered the space, the Vorthok's enormous head turned toward her like a radar dish locking onto a target. It had 6 eyes, each one bigger than her fist, and they all focused on her with an intensity that would have terrified most people. The bony spines along its back rose up like the hair on an angry cat, and its claws made terrible scraping sounds against the metal floor as it shifted into what looked like an attack position. Kate stood perfectly still, not moving, even a muscle. Her voice came out low and steady, the same tone she used with scared animals back home. Easy there, big guy. Nobody here wants to hurt you. I'm just here to help. The creature's lips pulled back, showing rows of teeth that looked like they could bite through a car. A deep, threatening growl started building in its throat, a sound so scary that it made Kate's skin crawl. She had heard similar sounds from bears and big cats, but nothing quite like this. This is incredible, Dr. Kethra's surprised voice whispered through her earpiece. According to everything we know, it should have attacked her by now. Vorth always attack immediately when someone enters their territory. Kate took one small step forward, no bigger than if she was just shifting her weight. The Vorthok's growling got louder, but something interesting happened. Instead of charging at her, it shifted its body weight to one side, clearly favoring its right legs over its left. There we go, Kate said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. That's exactly what I thought. You're hurt, aren't you, buddy? She began moving very slowly in a wide circle around the creature, never looking directly into its eyes, never walking straight toward it. This was something she had learned from working with territorial animals. Direct eye contact meant challenge, and walking straight at them meant attack. But moving in a curve, keeping her body turned slightly away, told the animal that she wasn't a threat. The Vorthok kept its eyes on her as she moved, but it stayed in the same spot. Its massive chest was rising and falling heavily, like it was having trouble breathing. Kate could see the exhaustion in its posture now that she was closer. The creature's stress hormone levels are actually going down, came Dr. Veltar's amazed voice through the communication system. I don't understand how this is possible. As Kate continued her slow circle, she got close enough to see the Vorthak's injured side. Dark, thick liquid was seeping out between gaps in its natural armor plating. The area around the wound was swollen and had changed color to an angry purple-black. But what really caught her attention was the way something seemed to be moving under the skin, like there was a living thing inside the wound. Kate had seen this before in animals. Back on Earth, parasites that burrowed into wounds and made them much worse. The constant pain and irritation would drive any animal to aggressive behavior as they tried to escape the discomfort they couldn't understand. I can see what's wrong now, Kate said quietly, slowly reaching into her medical bag with movements so gradual they looked like she was moving underwater. The infection has a parasite. That's what's been driving the poor thing crazy. The Vorthok watched her hand go into the bag, and its growling got a little louder, but it still didn't attack or even take a step toward her. Because sometimes, Kate said, her voice calm and confident, the most dangerous predator in the galaxy is really just a scared, hurt animal that needs someone to care about it. She pulled a small medical scanner from her bag, moving so slowly that it took almost a minute. The Vorthak's 6 eyes tracked the device, but its aggressive posture was starting to relax just a little bit. That's right, Kate whispered. You're starting to understand that I'm not here to make things worse. I'm here to make the pain stop. The alien crew watching through the cameras couldn't believe what they were seeing. The most feared creature in the galaxy was actually letting a human approach it, and somehow, impossibly, it seemed to be calming down. The Vorthak's breathing had changed completely. What started as panicked, shallow gasps had turned into slow, steady breaths that reminded Kate of a sleeping dog. The massive creature now lay on its side in the cargo bay, making soft rumbling sounds as Kate carefully worked on its injured flank. What everyone had expected to be the most dangerous medical procedure in galaxy history had somehow become almost peaceful. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Dr. Kethra's voice came through the communication system, and he no longer sounded skeptical or scared. Instead, he sounded like a scientist who had just discovered something amazing. All the creature's stress readings are completely normal now. The chemicals it's producing, I don't even have names for some of them. They're nothing like what we expected. Kate had finally figured out what was wrong with the poor animal. Using her medical scanner, she had found a Zarathi boreworm buried deep in the wound. These parasites were nasty little creatures that burrowed into living tissue and fed on nerve endings. On smaller animals, they caused uncomfortable itching and pain. But on something as big as a Vorthok, the constant agony would be enough to drive anyone crazy with pain and frustration. I need to remove this parasite, Kate announced to the crew watching from above. It's wrapped around some major nerves. If I make even one small mistake, this creature could end up paralyzed for the rest of its life. Captain Thompson's worried voice crackled through her earpiece. What happens if it wakes up while you're doing the surgery? Kate looked down at the Vorthak's closest eye, which was about the size of a dinner plate. Despite its enormous size and frightening appearance, she could see intelligence there, and something that looked almost like trust. The creature was watching her work, but it wasn't trying to move or get away. It's not going to wake up and attack, Kate said confidently. We have an understanding now. It knows I'm trying to help. She began the careful work of removing the parasite, using medical tools that were designed for animals much smaller than this giant creature. The Vorthak's skin was incredibly thick, almost like natural armor, so Kate had to use techniques she had learned while treating elephants and rhinoceros back on Earth. Throughout the entire procedure, she kept one hand gently resting on the creature's massive shoulder, letting it know she was still there. The boreworm, when Kate finally managed to pull it out completely, was absolutely disgusting. It was as long as her arm and as thick as her wrist, covered in segments like a giant earthworm, but with tiny teeth along its sides. The thing writhed and twisted in her surgical clamps, angry at being removed from its comfortable home. Kate could hardly believe something so awful had been living inside the wound for who knows how long. The moment the parasite was completely removed, the change in the Vorthok was incredible to see. Its entire body seemed to relax, like a person finally getting relief from a terrible headache. For the first time since Kate had entered the cargo bay, the creature made a sound that wasn't scary or threatening. Instead, it was a deep, rumbling vibration that sounded almost like a giant cat purring. The creature's brain activity has completely changed, Dr. Veltar reported from the observation deck, his voice full of wonder. These new readings look like what we see in very social animals when they're bonding with their family or friends. Kate applied the last of her special healing gel to the wound and took a step back to admire her work. The Vorthok slowly lifted its enormous head and looked at her with all 6 of its eyes. Then something happened that no one watching could have predicted. The creature slowly extended one of its huge clawed hands toward Kate, palm up, like it was offering to shake hands. Kate didn't hesitate for even a second. She reached out and gently placed her much smaller hand on the creature's palm. The cargo bay filled with that wonderful purring sound, and Kate couldn't help but smile. "I think you're feeling much better now, aren't you?" she said softly, the same way she would talk to any animal after a successful treatment. Up in the observation deck, a dozen alien scientists stood pressed against the windows, watching in complete silence. They were witnessing something that would be talked about and studied for years to come. A human woman had just formed a peaceful connection with the most feared predator in the galaxy, proving that sometimes understanding and compassion could accomplish what weapons and fear never could. The Vorthok continued to purr, a sound that vibrated through the metal floor and filled everyone listening with a strange sense of peace and wonder. 3 months had passed since the incident on the research vessel, and Dr. Kate Miller found herself standing in the most important room in the galaxy. The Galactic Council's Xenobiological Committee chamber was enormous, with curved walls that seemed to stretch up forever. Representatives from dozens of different alien species sat in floating chairs arranged in a perfect circle around her. Kate had never imagined she would be here. She was just a simple veterinarian who loved helping animals, and now she was addressing the most powerful beings in known space. Behind her, a massive holographic screen showed video footage from the horizon's edge. The images of her treating the Vorthok had spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication, becoming the most watched recordings in galactic history. "Honored council members," Kate began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "What we learned on that research ship changes everything we thought we knew about how Vorthoks behave." Ambassador Thelex, who had been promoted to head of Xenobi affairs after the successful mission, activated another holographic display. His tentacles moved smoothly across the controls as he spoke. "The creature we now call V7 has been living at Research Station Kepler 7 for the past 3 months, he explained. "What we've observed has been completely unexpected and wonderful." The new hologram showed the same Vorthok that Kate had treated, but it looked like a completely different creature now. Instead of the terrified, pain-crazed animal they had found on the ship, V7 was calm and peaceful. The video showed it gently interacting with alien researchers, letting them touch its armored hide, and even seeming to enjoy their company. Where everyone had once seen a mindless killing machine, there was now obvious intelligence, curiosity, and what could only be described as friendship toward its caretakers. 5 to 7 would bring researchers interesting objects it found, sit quietly while they took medical readings, and even seemed to have favorite people it liked to spend time with. Dr. Kethra, the insect-like scientist who had once been terrified of the creature, stepped forward to address the council. His compound eyes gleamed with excitement as he spoke. V7 has shown us abilities we never knew Vortex possessed, he reported. It can solve complex puzzles, communicate using dozens of different sounds and body movements, and form strong, emotional bonds with other beings. We now believe that the species' reputation for violence comes from misunderstandings and, in many cases, medical problems that were never properly treated. Council member Velanara, a tall, graceful being from the Rigel star system, leaned forward in her floating chair. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had seen many strange things in her long life. Dr. Miller, what you accomplished has implications that go far beyond just one creature, she said thoughtfully. Since news of your success spread, we've received reports about 17 other supposedly dangerous species that might have been wrongly classified as threats. Kate nodded, thinking about all the animals throughout the galaxy that might be suffering because people were too afraid to understand them. Fear has a way of creating its own problems, honored council member, she replied. When we approach any living being expecting them to be violent, we often end up creating the exact situation that makes them act violently. Working with animals on Earth taught me that aggression is usually just a symptom of something else, like pain, fear, or confusion. It's rarely the animal's true nature. The council session continued for several hours, with representatives asking Kate questions about her methods and requesting detailed reports about V7's progress. Finally, the moment came for the historic vote that would change everything. By unanimous decision, Kate Miller became the first human ever appointed as a xenobiological consultant to the Galactic Council. Her new job would be to travel throughout known space, re-evaluating species that had been labeled as too dangerous to approach, and finding ways to understand them better. As Kate left the council chambers, feeling both honored and overwhelmed by her new responsibility, her communication device beeped with an urgent message from Research Station Kepler-7. She opened it immediately, wondering if there was a problem with V-7. Instead, she found the most amazing news she could have imagined. 5-7 had been successfully introduced to 2 other Vorthok specimens that had been captured years ago. Instead of fighting or showing aggression, the 3 creatures had begun communicating with each other using a complex series of musical calls and harmonic vibrations that researchers were just beginning to understand. The report included audio recordings of the Vortex conversations. The sounds were beautiful and intricate, like whale songs mixed with classical music. Scientists were already working to decode the meaning behind different patterns and rhythms. Kate smiled as she read through the research notes. The galaxy's most feared apex predator, it turned out, had been trying to communicate all along. They had been attempting to share information, express emotions, and connect with others just like any social species. People had simply been too terrified to stop and listen as she walked toward her transport ship. Preparing for her first official mission as a galactic consultant, Kate reflected on how much had changed. Sometimes the most dangerous predators in the universe weren't the creatures hiding in dark corners of space. They were the fear and assumptions that prevented intelligent beings from seeing the truth and finding ways to connect with each other. The galaxy suddenly seemed like a much more hopeful place, full of possibilities for understanding rather than conflict.